All right, we're a little bit after 2 o'clock, so we'll go ahead and get started. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today on this webinar. This is 4 Ways to Win. Specifically, we're going to be talking about past performance today, which is one of my favorite topics. My name is Meryl Angelicola. I would hedge a bet that I know most of you in some way on this call, either through GovDash ProposalTeam or like actual GovCon proposal management and capture. That's what I love about the industry. But in case you don't know me, I have spent 18 years in GovCon, which is roughly half my life. I'm outing myself here. I have done pretty much everything from proposal to capture to delivery. I love this industry. I'll talk a little bit more about that here in a minute. But currently, I'm the VP of Industry Solutions at GovDash, and I'm also the founder of ProposalTeam, which is a nonprofit that I started. You may know us from LinkedIn. We publish a lot of proposal memes and also provide free training to folks that are from outside industries that want to get into GovCon and proposals. I am super excited to tell you a little bit about GovDash today. They are the ones who are sponsoring this webinar and allowing us to bring this to you here. GovDash, for those of you who don't know, is an AI platform, the first end-to-end AI platform that assists government contractors with capture, proposal development, contract management, and more in one place. We're going to give you a demo at the end, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that. But just as a very high-level overview, the foundation of GovDash and what makes us different is that we understand that winning proposals are not created in a vacuum, and they're very dependent on solid capture and relevant past performance. And therefore, we have solutions that span the government contracting workflow and feed our proposal generation that's powered by AI so that you not only create proposals you can submit, but proposals that win contracts, right? Which is the goal and the most important thing. 4 Ways to Win is a series that we are going to be putting on monthly. And each month we will tackle a different strategic element of proposals and winning contracts. Just like we're tackling past performance, we've got a lot of things lined up for the next several months, and we'll bring those to you. So I hope you come back, and I hope that you enjoy this one and get something out of it. Today, specifically, we're talking about past performance. And I mentioned that it's one of my favorite topics. Unfortunately, it's not a topic that like folks at dinner parties really find exciting. So I was really pumped to get to talk to the industry today about it and folks that understand. We're going to give you 4 actionable ways to leverage past performance to win contracts. And I've attended a lot of webinars in my time in GovCon. And the one thing that annoys me the most is when you go to a webinar and are not sure what you got out of the hour. So we're going to do everything we can to make sure that you guys have actionable things to make your job easier and help improve your win rate. The first thing we'll talk about is the ultimate goal, which is winning the contract. Then we'll give you strategies for going beyond the PWS when looking at past performance. We'll also give you strategies and talk through how to ensure every piece of the proposal workflow and the GovCon workflow is informed by that past performance. And then at the end, Sean will give us a demo that shows how GovDash is empowering teams to achieve this with our software. Imagine we probably have some beginners or folks that are new to GovCon on this call. So for people that are not familiar with what past performance is, at a very base level, it's documented evidence of a contractor's history of successfully completing similar contracts. And the purpose of past performance is that it should demonstrate that you're reliable, that you provide quality services or goods, and that you have the capability to fulfill future contract requirements. This matters because past performance has a lot of purposes. One, it's a key element to targeting the right customers. And when you have as many government contracts out there as you do, the government buys all kinds of stuff, you need a good way to target the ones where you have the highest chance of winning. It's a major indicator for PWIN and the ability to deliver on requirements of a contract. It's the guide for developing your team and solution, and it's most importantly, the quantifiable proof that contracting officers need to justify awarding a contract to your organization. In the age of AI, times are changing, and it can feel like everybody is able to write a proposal that reads well. And this is true, right? Everybody has access now to a tool that can write a decent sounding proposal. But luckily, because this allows us to know how to win contracts, it's not that easy. And in order to win a contract, the proposal doesn't just need to read well, it actually needs to evaluate and score well too. And the government tends to be risk averse, and the evaluation criteria, oh, hold on one second, my computer is freezing on me. Oh, there we go. The government tends to be risk averse, and evaluation criteria reflects that. So many government contracts are funded by taxpayer dollars. And for that reason, we have the FAR, which is a really long list of requirements that the government has to stick with to make sure that we're being responsible with spending taxpayer dollars. Relevant past performance is included in almost every RFP and evaluation criteria that's out there. And one of the reasons for that is because it's the quantifiable proof that the contracting officers need to justify awarding a contract to you as a business. That's what makes it really important. And in this day and age, with technology and the fact that everybody can write a proposal that sounds good, past performance now more than ever is what sets you apart. It's your differentiator. So let's talk about our first actionable way to win. The goal is to win the contract and to not burn out. That's important. I am a storyteller and I love the human element of this, and I really think that plays a big role in it. So I'm going to tell you guys my story and how I got from managing proposals and running capture and managing contracts to now being the VP of a AI startup for the proposal industry, because it is pretty different, right? That is quite a journey, but it reflects why I'm here, and it all comes down to what it takes to win. I mentioned before that my GovCon career started 18 years ago. I was 19 at the time. So again, half my life, I came into GovCon very accidentally. So as many of us probably did, I was a teenager and I wanted to move anywhere that was not North Carolina, where I was from. And so I just applied to like 100 jobs. And one of them was a company that called me back and offered me a job as like an administrative assistant. They happened to sell services to the government. And so when I got there, about 3 weeks in, what I realized is that that role had a lot of hats, as small companies, tend to require. And my boss went out of town for over a month and had no access to email, computer, anything. And we were in the middle of a proposal. And when I say we were a small company, there were 4 of us. And one of them she was married to, and he was also in the other country. So it was really me. And thankfully, we had a prime who knew what they were doing. And I didn't know anything at this point. They taught me everything that I didn't know, which again was everything. And I was so thankful for that experience because I learned a lot, but also it really hooked me on proposals and GovCon. Because my boss was out of town, the other thing that happened is that we didn't have access to her resume. And so we therefore had to bid me as the program manager, which wouldn't have been a problem except for the fact that we won. And so pretty soon after that, I went from proposal to delivery, and then moved on to capture. And that's really been what my career has consisted of, right? I'm really attached to the outcome. And so whenever I manage a proposal or I do delivery or I'm running capture, I'm always thinking about the proposal in mind because of this experience, because I was able to see things from start to finish and how each step of the process really impacts the ability to win. What that looks like is a lot of times proposals are seen as a standalone function, but it's not true. It's not how it works. Proposals are really what happens when good capture and delivery come together. And you cannot have a proposal that wins instantly, strategically, without good capture and delivery. You may have one that wins out of luck, and that's great, but that's not a sustainable way to win, right? And admittedly, the one that we won was pretty lucky. Not just for me in my career, but because it got our company a contract. But that being said, it's not a path that is sustainable for continued growth, right? In order to consistently win contracts, you have to submit proposals that are informed by good capture and relevant past performance that comes from delivery. The sweet spot here is when you can consistently utilize your team across all of these areas to come together throughout the process to develop proposals that are informed by all of these things. And why this matters, what it comes down to is that, again, in order to win contracts, you can't just identify a contract and start writing. You really need to make sure you have relevant past performance, that you have quality capture and relationships, and that you have the right solution. These are the ingredients that you need to actually write a proposal that is going to win. So journey to GovDash, back to my journey. I continued to work in GovCon, continued to do capture, proposal, and delivery. And I also began to notice some patterns, which were, there were some repeating elements, some good things that I loved about GovCon, but also some things that were concerning to me, right? I began to make friends in the industry, began to team with other companies, work for other companies, and there were a lot of universal challenges that happened. Team burnout, teams that were siloed, generic proposals, stress, and more. And none of these things are fun. You have a lot of folks that are working many hours outside of their normal work week, not a lot of, work-life balance. Teams, and more importantly, data is siloed across capture, proposals, and delivery, which is a problem when you need all three to work together. This resulted in a lot of generic proposals and just a ton of stress. You guys can probably relate to this, and you likely have many more things to add to this list here, but these are some of the big ones that I found. So around the same time, I decided to start ProposalTeam, and what that did was give me access and expand my network significantly when it came to proposal managers and folks that were in the industry. And I noticed that it wasn't just me that was experiencing these things, right? It wasn't happening just to me, it was happening to everybody. And so it was really universal. And that gave me pause. What I discovered through conversations with folks is a lot of these challenges came down to the fact that capture, proposals, and delivery were segmented. And there were a lot of barriers to communication, a lot of barriers to data, and a lot of barriers to collaboration. So cross-functional things didn't work. And proposal managers did not have the access that they needed to past performance. And capture managers didn't have the access they needed to past performance to make good decisions. And it impacted everything across the life cycle. Around the same time, AI came out, ChatGPT was released, and that was cool. And we were starting to hear about it, got to hear some buzz. And because ProposalTeam was gaining more traction at that point, I started getting a lot of phone calls and emails and LinkedIn messages from all of these GovCon AI proposal companies that wanted to demo their software to me. I was excited about it because I was a director of proposals at the time. And so I took a lot of these calls. And what was shocking to me is that up until this point, there were maybe like 4 or 5 technology solutions that were in any way built for GovCon, right? What began to happen almost overnight is that all of a sudden everybody wanted to build software for GovCon. And this is an exciting prospect when you haven't had the tools that you needed. Now everyone's claiming to build those tools. But there were also some concerns here. A lot of folks were claiming to build for GovCon, but and the slogan sounded good, like write proposals in an hour, submit 10 times more proposals, bid on everything. Like all of these at face value sound really good. But what that led to and what I heard is the exact same challenges that I noticed before AI came onto the scene, right? Write generic proposals in an hour, submit 10 times more losing proposals, bid on everything, and burn out. And this, while it sounds good, it's really not good in reality. And the other side of this is it wasn't utilizing AI in the way that could really be helpful to the industry and we really needed. One big reason for this is, again, you have these 3 areas. These solutions only would focus on the proposal piece, right? And that just put more stress on proposal managers, and it didn't consider the big picture. And we weren't able to get that past performance data that was so critical, or that capture and solutioning data to develop those proposals. The reason for this, and this is our first key to winning an actionable insight here, is that you have to remember submission isn't the goal. Submission of the proposal, it feels great. It's the first goal. You want to get it off your plate, but the goal is to win the contract. And we have to keep this in mind because the only thing you get for submitting the most generic proposals is more losing proposals and more stressed out teams, right? So we already know what that's like, and tools that facilitate more of that is not really helpful to us. And again, you need relevant past performance, quality capture relationships, and the right solution to win. And that's what brought me to GovDash. And it was basically the dream here is to build cross-functional tools that we actually need. And what I'm about to say now, as the VP of a software startup company, AI for government contractors, is probably going to be a little shocking. But this is something we really believe in, and it's why I joined GovDash and the foundation of not only how we build software, but what we're talking about today. AI can't win government contracts on its own, right? It might get lucky. It might write something that's kind of believable and happen to hit a contracting officer with their proposal that is open to that or needs a quick fix. That's fine. But people and strategy still win government contracts, and that's still key. AI can't create the things that matter, which are relevant quality, past performance, genuine relationships, mature solutions, customer understanding, and real expertise. But AI can give teams more time to focus on the strategic things that win contracts. And it can also help you utilize your data in ways that empower strategy. And what we're going to talk about today are ways for you to optimize what AI can't do and show you how you can use AI to help in that process. So our second thing here, and just before we move on, I did want to bring y'all's attention to the QA. If you look at the top of your screen, if you do have questions as we go, please feel free to put those in the QA or the chat, and we'll take a look at them after, and hopefully we'll have some time to answer those as well. All right, so going beyond the PWS, this is important. So what does that mean? Going beyond the PWS is important because you can't leverage what you don't know about, right? And in order to leverage past performance, at a minimum, you have to have quantifiable proof. What that looks like is a contract and a PWS document, right? What separates past performance from capabilities is the quantifiable aspect. And so when the government asks for past performance, you can't say, oh yeah, we have experience with software development. You have to be able to say, we provided software development services to this customer for this duration of time, for this amount of money, and this is exactly what we did, right? That's past performance. Talking about your capabilities in general, that's great. You can utilize that in a proposal, but when they ask for past performance and they're evaluating past performance, that comes down to quantifiable proof. So many people start here, and it's a great place to start. But in strategic proposal management, our job is to uncover everything we can, because again, in this day and age with AI, past performance is our discriminator. It's what makes us different from everybody else. And we need to do this before the RFP drops, because timelines these days are getting shorter and shorter, right? But we don't have much time to actually develop the proposal. We definitely don't have time to uncover past performance and metrics, right? So this has to be a company-wide, team-wide strategic effort, and it has to happen long before the RFP drops. Many people begin with the PWS, and it's an important starting point, but it's only part of the story. And so when you have this PWS document, the government writes this before the contract even happens, right? And so it's the starting point, but there's a lot of detail and shading that goes into actually carrying out a contract. And so the work that you do with the government on a contract, a lot of that's going to be in between the lines. The PWS is really the guidelines of what fits, but it's not the details and it's not the whole story. These things right here, the rest, this is what's really important. And this is where you begin to really harness the power of your past performance, when you can go beyond the PWS and have at your fingertips resources and data that give you even more detail. What that looks like is not skipping these very valuable data points. Conversations with employees that are providing support to the government. That's huge. That's your number one way to gather intel and information. These are your subject matter experts. These are the most important folks and conversations that you will have, and the most important people that you'll talk to when it comes to what you're doing for the government, because they're the ones that are doing the work, right? They've got real life experience. They've got their visual experience and the details that can only come from them. They hold a lot of that in their brains, right? But some of it they put out. So you have to actually talk to them. That's where you're going to get most of this. But then there's also some artifacts that are created in the process of carrying out a contract. And one of those is a deliverable. Depending on the contract, these are always different, but deliverables can be a very valuable source of information. Status reports, maybe they're not things that are formally submitted to the government as a deliverable, but they're something that are maintained as part of your day-to-day and operations. CPARs are huge because that is something the government will definitely look at. And you want to make sure that what is being included in there is reflective of your contract, but also there could be details in there that you're not considering. So you want to make sure you have those. Resumes are really important. case studies, metrics, kudos, and quotes. This list could really be much longer. There's so many options, but when you start to think about the possibilities and going beyond the PWS, this is where you really get a strategic advantage and a competitive advantage above your competitors that are not doing those things, right? All right. So this also can create a problem though, and I'm blind to this, so I understand because my job for a very long time was building data systems for government contractors, and a lot of that was done in SharePoint. So if you take a look at a SharePoint system in any government contractor in this day and age, most of the time it's going to be complete chaos, right? And a big reason for that is that there's so much data that's generated as a result of supporting the government. When you're small and when you have a small record of past performance or you're new, like this can be pretty manageable, right? Or when you're just focusing on one contract. But the reality of this is when you begin to think outside of the PWS and collect all of these things, this is amazing. But if you don't figure out a way to link it together and, determine relationships and store it and organize it, it becomes chaos really quickly. And like absolute complete chaos. But I think we've all seen this before. So we have resumes in 7 different places within our organization. We've got no single source of truth for past performance. Proposals tries to create their own, delivery tries to create their own. Everyone needs this information, but there's no single source of truth. We've got CPARs not accessible to us. We have to request them when the proposal begins and the RFP drops. We've got to find resumes. Metrics are not something that are stored throughout. So we're in a mad dash to try to find those metrics to answer a proposal requirement. It just gets real chaotic really quickly, right? And this is even compounded when you begin to work with trusted partners over and over again, because all of a sudden their details get mixed up with your details and nobody can figure out whose past performance is what. When you use AI, this is even more important because AI is only valuable if it has good data to work with, right? And trying to figure this out can be very overwhelming. I lived it and I understand it. This is why context matters and is very important. So whatever way you choose to organize your data and create your record of past performance, you have to have the context of the contract. Because remember, the contract is what makes something past performance. It's the quantifiable proof that you need to prove to the government that you have done this. And so when you're storing all this insane amount of data, you want to have the context of what contract did it belong to. This PWS was from this contract, this deliverable, these metrics, the CPARs, these case studies, these resumes. This is your anchor point, right? And this is what creates a really usable and valuable record of past performance. You can do the same thing for your partners, right? And it's going to be different, but if you use them over and over again, you work with them over and over again, it's great to have a record of their past performance as well. You keep the two separate, and that context is going to keep everything clear. And this is really what's important for AI to be valuable and to write proposals that can not just be submitted, but can actually win. And then the third thing, past performance informs everything. So this is really where we get down to changing the way that we think about proposal management. This is a topic I'm super passionate about because proposal managers are some of the most strategic people I've ever met, right? They are thinking about all the puzzles, the pieces of the puzzle. They're figuring out how they go together. A lot of times they are confined to checking boxes from compliance, right? But their brains work so well when it comes to strategy, and companies, I think, underutilize them, not because they, don't think that they could do this, but they just don't have the time, right? And the way that we're currently operating with proposals creates a situation where no one has the time to be strategic. AI has a really strong potential to help us with that, right? But we have to approach it the right way. A typical life cycle works where you identify the opportunity, then you qualify the opportunity, you do capture, gather intel, and use influence and try to influence the customer. You develop the solution, you write the proposal and submit it, and then hopefully you win and you have to deliver on the contract, right? And that's the typical workflow. When we get to the proposal phase, a lot of times companies will engage the proposal manager at this phase of the process. But we have to get outside of that, because what happens is we're creating more work by not engaging them ahead of time and allowing them to be more strategic and make sure we have the information we need throughout the process to actually answer the questions and write a proposal that will win. Strategic proposal management is all about operating with evaluation in mind. So being able to have visibility into every piece of the process, like during the capture phase, are we answering the questions we need to answer? During the delivery phase, do we have access to the metrics that we need? Do we have a good story here? Do we have the key personnel? There's a lot of data that is very critical in a proposal. And when it's left to the last minute after an RFP is released, this is when everybody scrambles and we begin to write generic proposals because there's just not enough time to accomplish everything. So we really have to operate the entire time with evaluation in mind. And that's what it means to operate an organization like this, where capture, proposals, and delivery are one unit, right? And this is really critical. Because again, when you begin to win proposals over and over again and strategically, it's because you have all three of these things working together. And strategic proposal management is all about giving proposal managers the information they need to see that we're hitting the milestones that we need to hit throughout the process, but also giving them the time to do that and the ability to focus on that, and bringing accountability into play where everybody is working with evaluation in mind and the proposal in mind. So what does that look like, and how can past performance help us do this? Well, it is super critical, the most critical at the identification phase. So this is the ideal opportunity for your company. Everyone wants to find this. It's the one where you have the highest chance of winning, right? And this is the goal with opportunity identification. You want to find this opportunity and you want to find it early. But the problem here is that there are so many opportunities out there, right? It is overwhelming. If you've ever logged into SamGov, like that is one of the biggest issues. So in order to narrow this down and really figure out where your targets are, there's 4 things you can look for. Opportunities with existing customers, opportunities that leverage existing capabilities, opportunities that leverage existing partnerships that you have, and then opportunities that leverage existing relationships. And what I mean by that is maybe a contracting officer or a key personnel was supporting a contract you had and then moved somewhere else. Those are important things, right? Because you have that history there. This all comes from past performance. And when you understand this, and everybody is equipped with understanding of past performance, especially capture at this phase, they're going to make better decisions about what to even put on your pipeline for consideration. Past performance really becomes the guide and what allows you to focus on where you have the highest chance of winning. And just as an FYI, we do this in GovDash, and this is one of my favorite features. I'm only calling out a couple of them, but we do have a bid search that automatically looks at your capabilities and then compares them against the requirements, not just of the title, but really the actual PWS requirements of each contract, and gives you a score based on the relevancy to your past performance. So this is an example of how AI can help you with the strategic. It can't do it for you. It can't make these decisions for you, but it can definitely make it easier and give you more time to focus on things. The next step of the phase is qualifying the opportunity. Past performance plays a huge piece here as well. We've narrowed it down now, and we have a smaller list of opportunities. This is still way too many to go after. And so we need to do another round of analysis, and that's your qualification phase. And this is where you're operating, again, with evaluation in mind. Who's open to change? Where are we most aligned? Where can we be cost competitive? Where can we tell the best story? Who actually likes us, right? Like, these things are important, and they're going to help you choose the opportunities for your strategic pipeline. And this is critical because when you operate as strategic proposal managers, you can't go after everything, right? So you really have to narrow it down to the things that you have the highest chance of winning, and then approach those strategically. This also helps in capture and solutioning, because when you answer those questions that are linked to your past performance, and when you select opportunities that align with your past performance, this becomes the key. It unlocks everything. Making the right bid decisions makes every piece of the process so much easier. And those questions that you answered to select the opportunity, they now become your leverage to reach out to customers or to reach out to a large prime if you're a small business. When you know how to answer these questions, this is your messaging now, right? Like, who's open to change? That's important to know because you're going to approach them now and you've got a message that you can give them because you're aligned in this area and you're able to be cost competitive for this reason. And this is the story we're going to tell. And we know it's going to be strong and we know we've already got some favor with this customer and it fits our expertise really well. So now you're not contacting someone and saying, hey, I'm an 8A business and I noticed that you have an 8A opportunity. You're contacting them and saying, hey, this is what we do really well. Here's the quantifiable proof. Let me tell you about why we can help you. And I was on the other side of this for a long time. I, would be approached by small businesses for partnership. Those are the opportunities when someone would approach me with that, like that caught my attention. And that's what I wanted to listen to. This is your in. With the government, when I do capture, when I'm able to answer these questions very confidently, this is when I'm able to get the meetings with folks and get their attention and we instill confidence. So this is critical. And if you don't leverage your past performance to make decisions, then you're not necessarily going to have these lined up, right? And the reason this is important because when you meet with customers and you speak with them, that's when you get the understanding and the opportunity to influence. And that is so critical when it comes to solutions. We'll send these out after these questions here, but these are the questions that you cannot ask during QA after the RFP has been released. These are the things that come from conversation. You want to know why it's being procured, why it's a priority for the customer, why is the current solution not working, how is it, how are we going to specifically address their needs? This is where you can begin to really leverage past performance because it got you in front of the customer and you now have this expertise because it's aligned with your past performance to speak to these things confidently. If you're going after something that you've never done before with someone you've never met, it's really a lot harder to answer these questions. And these questions are critical to creating a solution that's believable. We also build this into GovDash. This is my other favorite. I have a lot of favorite aspects of it, but this is my other one. And we're even, developing more on this as well, like as we speak, but being able to have these questions built into the capture and solutioning process, this is how you begin to operate with evaluation in mind, because these are the things that you need to know at a minimum to write a solid proposal. And winning solutions, again, really require understanding. In order to create a solution, you have to know what the customer wants. And in order to influence them, you have to actually speak with them, right? And have something that they want. And then finally, we get to the proposal phase. The great thing about proposals, what I love about proposal managers is that we can do a lot of things, right? And we're asked to do a lot of things. That can also be the worst part of the job though, right? And so what's important is that we have access to this information as soon as possible, aligning past performance with our bid decisions and having access to all of that information where everybody can access it is going to allow proposal managers to do these things and check these boxes, like create win themes, substantiate claims, create compelling stories, create a compliant solution. All of these things can now happen before the RFP drops because we have access to the information, right? And we are talking to the customer because now we're in, so we can begin to create a compliant solution and socialize that with the customer. We can build our win themes based on what we're finding out from the customer. All that comes from having expertise on your team and getting an in to be able to speak with them. Because again, strategic proposal management is operating with evaluation in mind. This is where you win. And then finally, the last piece of this puzzle is delivery. And delivery is past performance. So people forget that a lot of times, but real life contracts as they're being, executed upon, I know it's not past performance, it's like current performance, but current performance will become past performance and you can still use current performance in a proposal. And so it's really important to have your delivery team aligned with the evaluation in mind. They are going to be really critical in collecting all this information. And if you have an organization-wide strategy for maintaining this information and getting it, it's just going to make you even more competitive, right? If you can get more insight into your contracts and past performance than your competitors do, you are operating at a much higher level and your strategic advantage is going to be huge. So that is the end of my presentation. So Grant, I'm going to answer your question real quick. Can you describe what you mean by relationship and how that relates to winning, given all the other factors are the same: good proposal, good past performance, and pricing? Yeah, so if I understand your question correctly, are you I believe you're asking when all other things are the same, how does relationship play a part in winning? How's that your differentiator? People buy from people, right? And the government is a lot of people, and that's easy to forget. And so if you have a relationship with the government, first and foremost, like if you're able to talk to the customer before the RFP is released, you're going to get additional detail and context for what they want and need. And so at face value, it may look like your solution is the same as somebody else's, but little details can matter, right? And you get those little details when you're talking to a customer. Having a relationship with them also gives them more confidence. Having talked to them, like anything that you can do to build that level of trust before the RFP is released and you're no longer allowed to talk to them, that's going to go a long way in their level of confidence and perceived risk. All right. That is everything I had. All right. Well, I'm going to pass it to Sean now to give us a demo of the software.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. First of all, thank you, Meryl, and everyone for being here today. Really appreciate it. All right, so going off of all the wisdom that Meryl just shared, I'd love to walk you through a live demo of how GovDash actually connects this data across the system and connects these workflows that you're all going through on a daily basis. So at the core of everything that Meryl mentioned are these past performance records, right, in the form of contract records. And those records underpin a lot of what actually goes on within GovDash. And so getting those into GovDash is quite simple here. We're able to upload contracts in bulk or create an individual record. And what it's going to do is it's going to automatically organize all the information associated with that contract record. So in the examples that were shared before, things like the actual award document, maybe the PWS that was associated with it, monthly status reports, and anything else that you have that's actually tied to that contract itself. And then this data is used, like I said, across the system. So on day one, when you get set up with GovDash, the ramp up is quite quick. You'll see that your recommendations in terms of opportunities will become tailored to you just in a couple of hours once we start getting those contract records into the system. And these scores that you're looking at here, these are actually going to be calculated not based on just titles and codes, which is I think what most people are used to, but it will actually go, it will look at the description of these opportunities, infer what the scope of work is, and then directly compare that to our capabilities as a company as pulled out from those contract records and past performance. So GovDash will automatically recommend these to you on a daily basis. You'll be able to go through and run search on top of all of these as well. And then you can click into any opportunity. We can find information about potential competitors. It'll pull in all the documentation for us automatically. And then if we like this, we can go ahead and actually add it to our pipeline there. And all those sorts of features we can always get into either in our next session or on a call if you'd like to go ahead and schedule one. At this point though, within our pipeline, this is really where what Meryl talked about in terms of connecting the capture process to the proposal process to produce an even more compelling output. This is where this comes into play. And so if we actually click into any of these opportunities here, what we're going to see is that GovDash is going to guide us through those capture questions that were shown on the screen earlier. So everything from, okay, what is the motivation of the customer, to when it comes to our solution, what is it actually going to look like? What are the benefits of this? What are the risks? And so as a team, we can go in and input this information, and we can upload supporting files as well. But we can also work with the GovDash system to get suggestions to any of these and get the ball rolling. And it'll actually be able to pull from both its knowledge of the solicitation document as well as the information in our contract cloud and data graph here to make those suggestions. At this point, we can seamlessly roll this right into the actual proposal generation process. So anything that is pulled over into the proposal column here, you'll see will then have a start proposal button. And then when you click on that, you'll see that GovDash will be able to automatically pull in those documents. And then we'll kick off the process of actually running through and getting that proposal outputted from here. What it actually does at that point is it creates what's called a proposal folder. And again, your past performance comes into play. And so if I click into this here, what you'll see is that one, GovDash is going to pull over all that capture information. And again, we can go over this some other time, but it'll break down the solicitation, every single document, build you a response compliance matrix, give you a list of a comprehensive list of line-by-line instructions. Same deal for your task areas. That being said, it's also going to provide you with this annotated outline where it will pre-select which of your past performances from this contract cloud make the most sense to talk about, given the size, scope, and complexity of the current opportunity that we're pursuing. And at any point, I can actually change these, and GovDash will learn from that. It gets logged. Or I can go in and browse through our contract inventory and add any of these that I'd like. At this point, once we go ahead and have GovDash actually produce this proposal, it's going to run through and use our data graph in our contract cloud. And for every section, it's going to use our proprietary ranking engine to find the most relevant information and then turn that into prose adapted around the situation at hand for each section, relying on that company data again. And then it's going to shoot us an email letting us know that our proposal is ready to go, which we can download with one click of a button directly into Microsoft Word. And so at this point, we have a full-length draft of our proposal. It's built off of that compliant outline. Here, this is just like the cover page that we have for the sample account. This would be your actual cover page, right? It would have your stylistic elements. It'll be formatted exactly how you do as a team. But at this point, your company data and your contract records continue to come into play. And that's because we have what's called the GovDash Word Assistant, which makes it really easy for your team to make any modifications to the document within Microsoft Word itself. You can sort of think of this as a ChatGPT, but built specifically for the GovCon use case that not only has context into the solicitation that we're responding to, but is also directly tied to your data graph and your contract cloud. And so as I'm going through here, we'll see that it went through and did what we'd expect to actually create past performance records. And then based on the specifics of this opportunity, it created this narrative around those records for us. That being said, I can continue to modify content like I mentioned before, and use this Word Assistant who will pull from my past performance in order to make suggestions. So for example, if I select some of this information here, GovDash will auto-populate that here in the sidebar, and then I can describe whatever changes I want it to make, almost like I'm talking to a colleague, or I can also use GovDash Power Actions. So for instance, if I wanted to substantiate its claim, meaning back up what I'm saying here, it's going to go ahead and run an intelligent set of queries against our contract cloud and our data graph, grabbing that same data that Meryl was mentioning, to come up with an even more compelling version backing up this passage. And if I like this, I can insert it directly into the document. And so we'll do that across the board. And again, you can use this for really asking it to incorporate specific contracts, or it'll always try to choose whatever is most relevant, but it will go and it will query from this data graph and this contract cloud on the fly in order to get you the results that you want. And I know we're very focused on past performance today. And so I'm happy to walk everyone through at some other time how this works for spinning up graphics and tables and making things more concise. But Meryl, I'll turn it over to you. Thanks for letting me show that.
All right, well, that is everything that I had as well. I noticed we did have a couple questions in the chat, and so I will go ahead and answer them. If you guys will put any additional ones that you have as well, though, happy to answer them as well. So Alyssa asked, how do you distinguish between case studies and past performance in terms of the content, i.e. how does GovDash system or AI distinguish that past performance is about the facts of the contract and the case study is more of a story? That's a great question. And so back when we talked about the minimum information that you need to have a record of past performance, the first thing that we talked about was that contract document and that PWS, right? That's the quantifiable proof. And so that is what we ask for at a minimum whenever we are building your record of past performance. We've got a lot of checks in place there where we are engaging our users at the right moments to say, hey, we didn't find a contract for this. Is there a contract available? What we do there, the reason we do that is because you need to have those two things, right? That's the foundation of it. Everything else, such as case studies or resumes or kudos, all of that is really important. And those are things that allow you to substantiate and give more detail and make things more believable. And so that's really how we deal with that. In the system, we are indicating what is the contract document and what is the PWS document. We're relying on those very heavily, and we're using all the other linked information as context to be able to substantiate and generate content.
And if I could just add one thing on that. So what it's going to do is it's actually going to parse out all the kind of the hard facts that you'd expect, right? And that's a lot of that's what we're seeing in the in this table here, it's also going to go and for the actual record, it will know which document is the contract document, which one is the PWS, and then we can add whatever supporting information we have. So if you just have like narratives associated with this as well, we can tie those directly to the contract record pretty easily coming in here, either from your data graph or by uploading a document. And then what happens there is GovDash will figure out how to use that information in the right way, depending on the situation of the current opportunity that you're going after and whatever the actual instructions were. So just wanted to add that.
Great, thanks, Sean. And Angela asked about connection to eBuy or other portals to pull out opportunities. That's something we're actively working on right now and should have out here very soon. Right now, our bid search is informed not only by what's SAM, but historical documents and opportunities so that you're able to identify things that may be coming out for rebid. We are also going to include eBuy, COSP4, all of those other very common portals. In addition to that, though, we're also working on a browser plugin that will allow you to utilize your own portals as well. So we know there's a lot of use cases out there. All right, can you add other past performances not associated with a past performance, but have the tool to use it for substantiation? Yeah, so yes, absolutely. So that use case, we have something called the data graph, which Sean is showing right now. And you're able to add whatever information you want. This could also include past performance that's linked to your partners, right? That are not necessarily things that you have done. It can include, resumes of folks that will be supporting the contract, things that are not necessarily quantifiable proof, but can be used to substantiate. And so GovDash is going to utilize your entire data graph, but we assign context to each document so that it utilizes those things in the correct way. Great. And then Samir, how do we get access to GovDash? The best way to do that is to go to our website and select Get Access. You'll be able to view Sean's calendar there and schedule a time to talk with him, and he will give you a personalized demo of the software that's catered to your company. All right, I believe we are almost at time here. I'm going to give you guys a little bit more time back in your day, but I really appreciate you joining me here. I hope you'll join us for the next 4 Ways to Win. This is very fun because we get to talk to GovCon folks about things that GovCon folks care about. So I appreciate your time here today and look forward to the next one.
And one last thing, Sarah, I saw your question in the chat. If you're still here, just wanted to answer that. So we actually do have a SharePoint integration. And also when it comes to the word styling, it sounded like your team may have had troubles with that in the past. How that works is we actually take your preferred Word document with whatever your cover page is, your stylistic elements, and our customer success team will very quickly be able to spin that up into the system. And as many as you'd like to. If you have multiple templates that you'd want to use in different situations, you can actually select that in the interface, but it will match that directly. And so when it outputs your proposal, it will actually have your exact kind of schematics in terms of styles. So yeah, just wanted to answer that if you are still here. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Meryl.